They just say there's nothing that they can do.
Plus, nighttime on the front line. We go on patrol with Ukrainian medics as their president begs world leaders not to abandon the quest for peace. Two intensifying conflicts for both, diplomacy seems to have stalled. So what now? That's all coming up on The World with me, Yalda Hakim. Good evening and welcome to this special edition of The World with me, Yalda Hakim, live from Beirut, in a country described today as being on the brink of catastrophe. Today, Lebanon's health minister told me 700 people, including women and children, have been killed since the violence escalated. Hundreds of thousands are on the move to escape bombardment. Across the country, craters are appearing as bombs are dropped by Israeli jets. This conflict could soon engulf this entire region. Well, that's because Israel is now hinting at a possible ground invasion after airstrikes struck over 2,000 targets. The IDF wants to stop Hezbollah missile attacks on northern Israel. This map shows you the scale of air raid alerts across the country. We don't have that map, but we will try and get that to you as soon as possible. They've been issued on average every 4 minutes since Sunday, although most projectiles were intercepted. And in a historic first today, Israel intercepted a Hezbollah ballistic missile aimed just north of Tel Aviv, apparently targeting the Mossad headquarters. Tonight, we'll have reports from across the region with our special correspondent Alex Crawford in southern Lebanon and our international correspondent John Sparks, who's in Beirut for us. But we begin in Tel Aviv as Israel prepares for its second ground war in 12 months. Sky's security and defense editor Deborah Haynes has our first report.
Israel's military chief preparing his troops for a possible ground invasion of Lebanon after days of airstrikes.
You will go in, destroy the enemy there, and decisively destroy their infrastructure. These are the things that will allow us later to return the residents of the north safely.
Hezbollah, backed by Iran, is also escalating. Here, Israeli air defences shoot down the first ever Hezbollah missile fired towards Tel Aviv. But Israel appears undeterred. We're shown one of the reasons why. This air defence system is armed and ready for action. Israel knows that its expanded operation against Hezbollah raises the risk of more missiles being fired from Lebanon towards Tel Aviv. There's also the possibility of Iran once again launching strikes. Yet this analyst doesn't believe Hezbollah or Iran want a wider conflict. It's perhaps why Israel is daring to strike so hard and so fast into Lebanon.
Both Iran and Hezbollah does not want a full-scale war because they are afraid of the consequences of such a war. That will destroy Lebanon, that the Iranians will have to be directly involved, and they don't want to be involved. They have their own problems. They just want to use Hezbollah for their own interests.
But this is a huge gamble, with Tel Aviv in the firing line. Tamer heard the air raid siren when Hezbollah launched its early morning missile.
We were woken up, we were startled, but I'm uncomfortable saying I was scared compared to what people in northern Israel are going through. I hope there will be an end to all this mess, to all the threats.
For now, though, the cycle of violence is quietly accepted in a country that feels it has no choice but to fight.
And Deborah joins us now. Deborah, in the last few hours, we've heard some quite alarming statements from senior IDF generals who have said to their forces, be prepared for a possible ground invasion. That has alerted and alarmed a lot of people here.
Yes, and it does seem increasingly likely that that is part of what's clearly been a long-developed and carefully planned operation to go after Hezbollah. It's a year now almost since Israel's defences, their intelligence services, were completely caught out when Hamas launched its attack against Israel on October the 7th. Israel then invaded Gaza, but when it comes to Hezbollah, which then started striking into the north of Israel the following day, it really seems almost 1 year on that Israel has conducted and initiated and launched and carried out an offensive that has had a lot of planning behind it, and it really feels as though military commanders and their political masters are increasingly confident in their capability, in their ability to strike Hezbollah commanders, to take out their weapons, and now it seems maybe go onto the ground as well. They believe, as I was saying in the report, Hezbollah does not want to start an all-out regional war, and therefore they're taking advantage of what they see as weakness to move as hard and as fast as they can. But of course it comes with huge risk and is inflicting terrible casualties.
Yeah, indeed, very much so. But it really does feel like Hezbollah has been dismantled, and those aerial bombardments do continue as well, as all things are now on the table, as we've discussed. Deborah, thank you very much for joining us and bringing us up to date. Well, for many people in southern Lebanon, nowhere is safe. Officials here say hundreds of thousands have fled their homes as Israel mounts the heaviest bombardment on its northern neighbour for nearly 2 decades. But there is no sign that Hezbollah is also backing down. Our special correspondent Alex Crawford has been hearing from the civilians caught in the crossfire.
South Lebanon is being hammered by Israeli airstrikes. There are a few places here where residents feel safe now. A residential block on the outskirts of Tyre is still burning as we turn up. It's one of hundreds attacked by Israeli forces during another intense day of bombing. The Israeli army chief says strikes like these are preparations for a possible ground assault into Lebanon.
Allahu Akbar.
Rhetoric or not, for residents in places like Nabatea, the war is all around. They targeted right next to us, he's saying. And this is the second. And this is the third. The emergency services are struggling to keep pace. There's no let-up in the airstrikes, the killing, wounding and terror. There are yet more fleeing. We'll be back, he's shouting. This area was considered safe just a few days ago.
We're still seeing lots of people on the move. There is a huge migration of people out of the area that's being targeted by the Israelis, and all along we're seeing evidence of airstrikes. The whole area around here is peppered by them.
Rare strikes too in the mountains north of the capital. This was Maesera, and a senior Hezbollah cleric was killed here, according to Lebanese news outlets. But the strikes here sparked yet more concern that the bombing is fast spreading across the country. Hezbollah is being relentlessly pursued, but it's coming at a cost to civilians who are in the way. Whole families are missing, with little time to search. And these 2 little sisters are among the dozens killed in another deadly day for the country. As parts of Lebanon came under sustained attack, Hezbollah's refusing to back down, claiming to fire its first ballistic missile at intelligence headquarters near Tel Aviv, which was intercepted by the Israelis. The ever-escalating situation is causing a growing humanitarian crisis, with hundreds of schools turned into shelters and thousands reliant on scarce aid.
They are traumatized. They lost their house. They saw some of their house being burned. They lost their income. They lost many things.
Lebanon's Social Affairs Minister didn't want to talk to us about it, nor to those in the shelter. He was heckled by those who've recently fled their homes and feel they're getting no help. They're not listening to us, she tells us. Everyone's just looking after themselves. We don't have mattresses, covers or pillows, and our children are sleeping on the ground. One traumatised mother said she'd fled with her 5 children hours earlier. There's a lot of destruction. People died, houses got destroyed, the roads were blocked, she said. There's no more bread, no more food, no more water. The situation is grim for these people, and there are tens of thousands like them, and feeling they, not only Hezbollah, are suffering under the Israeli bombardment.
They're not differentiating between fighters and civilians. This aggression is intensely hitting civilian areas. They're not differentiating at all.
But the Israeli airstrikes are going on through much of the night as well as the day now. This was close to the Lebanese-Italian hospital. And there's no end in sight to this right now. Alex Crawford, Sky News in southern Lebanon.
Leave immediately. That was the message from the Prime Minister to British nationals in Beirut today. Well, some flights are still operating in and out of Lebanon, but the Foreign Office is preparing for a mass evacuation to nearby Cyprus should that change. 700 additional troops are being sent to the RAF Akrotiri base. They join the logistics support ship RFA Mounts Bay and the HMS Duncan air defence destroyer, with aircraft and transport helicopters on standby. Our international correspondent John Sparks has been speaking to some of those trying to leave the country.
The highway north to the capital may be full of people trying to flee. But Beirut's international airport was uncharacteristically quiet. Most flights have already been cancelled. Most airlines have decided to stay well clear. A valid outbound ticket is a precious thing indeed.
For the last 48 hours, I'd say we've been sitting on eggshells, really. We've been, because we hear one thing happen and then another. It's, we have no clue what's going to happen next.
What is it like to be in Lebanon at the moment? How does it feel?
It's like a toxic relationship. You can't be here, but you love being here. There's a lot that you love about it. There's the family here. There's a lot to do. But at the same time, we have to think about our safety, our future.
The majority here were Lebanese, but there were British nationals too. Maher Ali, wearing red, lives in North London. He'd just been to see his parents in South Lebanon. What did you see? What did you experience?
Well, explosion everywhere. It's just been hitting, and I can hear them all day, all night long. Since 2 days, we have to, myself and some part of my member of my family, we have to escape from south toward Beirut.
Mr. Ali came because his mother was unwell.
I've been here only 12 days. Yeah, so I knew, I didn't know it was gonna hit that bad, but I knew there are war, but there are situations, some people, they have to come and check families. It's not holiday, you got me, it's an emergency.
The British Prime Minister is worried. Leave Lebanon immediately, he says, but it's not so simple for some. In Beirut's southern suburbs, we found the telltale signs of war. This Range Rover repair shop was flattened overnight. Briton Malhassan Al-Dada lives nearby.
Nice to meet you.
The mother of 2 is from Manchester. Her husband is Lebanese.
Okay.
Last night was very bad. The sounds were non-stop, the bombs, and we could see actually from there. You could see the flames going up.
Malhassan wants to take her children back to Britain. Problem is, she doesn't know how.
So I thought I might as well just take them and leave. So I've been trying all day to find tickets, and there's no commercial flights. Everything's gone.
She has called the Foreign Office for travel advice, but it wasn't reassuring.
I was hoping that they would be a bit more of help. That's what I thought, that, like the movies, they'd come and pick you up or something. And it's not that way at all. They just say there's nothing that they can do.
Making the decision to leave is one thing. Finding a way to do it, another. But it's now a necessity for many in Lebanon as this country hurtles into war. John Sparks, Sky News in Beirut.
Well, just over a week has passed since Lebanon was caught off guard as communications devices exploded across the country. The number of dead has risen sharply in the days since as Israel ramps up its aerial bombardment. Earlier today, I sat down with the country's health minister, Dr. Faras Abiyad, to find out how Lebanon is coping with the attacks. Doctor, could you give us an update on the latest numbers and situation here in Lebanon?
In the past week, we have seen an unprecedented number of casualties from the consecutive attacks that occurred on Lebanon. The total number of those who were killed is around more than 700. The total number of those who have been injured is almost 5,000 individuals. The vast majority of those people are civilians, including almost around 160 women and children that have been involved. There is also a large number of them who are healthcare workers, or whether killed or whether injured. More than 20 ambulances or firefighting machines were also targeted. Monday is a singularity because it is the largest number of casualties of people who were killed in a single day, I think, since the Lebanese civil war.
We're also seeing many people fleeing the area, thousands. Yes. Are you able to give us some numbers as to how many?
Yeah, so yesterday on Monday when we were trying to evacuate especially wounded to hospitals outside the areas that were targeted, we were unable because the roads were completely blocked with people. You know, Israel wanted to create this state of panic and terror among civilian population to provoke a mass exodus, and unfortunately, this is what happened.
The foreign minister is saying that he understands almost 500,000 people are displaced now?
This is our estimation. This is still not confirmed. We have in the shelters, now it's being reported that we have almost 50,000, and we know that people are in shelters, but based on these estimates, yes, I can see how, you know, the estimate is that we will reach easily that number.
Help us understand the state of the hospitals because they were already overwhelmed.
If indeed we see a continuation, then yes, I can see how the health system is overwhelmed. Actually, I don't think any health system can be prepared to this level of carnage.
Doctor, do you think that Hezbollah also needs to be reined in? Because that is what Israel is saying, that they have had to deal with almost a year of rockets and their citizens being forced out of the border areas.
I think that everybody needs to be reined in, including Hezbollah. But I think that Hezbollah was very clear. And it said that if there is a ceasefire in Gaza, that they will cease their activities. And I think that if this is their claim, let's remove the excuse that they have, and that is that the carnage in Gaza is continuing. Let's start with a ceasefire and then take it from there. And I think this is what everybody has been calling for, including the Prime Minister in the UK. I heard him yesterday during the Labour conference mention a ceasefire in Gaza. I think this is something that I think the international community, everyone except one particular party, who is clearly not interested in any ceasefire. It's only interested for further escalation in its actions.
Doctor, thank you so much for your time. It's Lebanon's health minister speaking to me there a little earlier. So a health system on the verge of collapse and many foreign nationals now trying to leave the country on the last commercial flights. And joining me here in Beirut is Chloe Lowen, who has lived here in the capital for 2 years now, Chloe.
Yeah.
You do have a flight booked to leave the country. Just tell us when you plan on leaving.
So I have a flight on Friday, so in 2 days' time. So I'm quite lucky compared to other British people who don't have flights, and because they don't really have an option. to get out unless they go by boat.
Yeah, I mean, do you have friends here who are British who are trying to get out?
Yeah, I do. Like people my age who have come to work or people older. And on Monday, when it all kicked off, we tried to book flights and they were just fully booked. Every time you get to the final page of booking them, the page crashes, so you can't get them.
Yeah, I mean, there's been dozens of flights that have been cancelled. Others are sold out. Others are not, flying into the country.
Yeah.
So what options are they now exploring?
Honestly, they aren't really exploring other options at the moment. I think they're just waiting to see if the situation gets better, which nobody knows. If it does, then they'll stay. But if it gets worse, then they'll either wait to be evacuated or they will probably get the boat to Cyprus, but there hasn't been much talk about getting the boat to Cyprus yet.
What is your family telling you now? Are you having conversations with them all of the time?
Yeah, I am. I speak to them all the time, and they obviously want me to come home, but I'm lucky because I have a flight, so there's nothing I can really do except wait until Friday.
What were you doing in Lebanon? I mean, you've lived here, as you say, for a couple of years.
Yeah, I was studying as a student, and I do some freelance journalism on the side. So yeah, lots of different things.
And clearly alarmed and disturbed by, I mean, there really is a sense of panic here. People are tense. It's almost like it's a waiting game.
Yeah, it is like that. It's been going on for like a year now, though. So, I mean, people are slightly getting used to it, but at the same time, like this time is different. It feels a lot more tense. And I haven't seen Beirut like it was on Monday, before like Monday. It was crazy that day, and people left instantly, like went to the mountains or tried to get flights. So it's obviously got a lot worse, and the streets are kind of empty now, like there aren't many people around. So it does feel a bit like tense and anxious, and yeah, everyone's waiting for something to happen, but...
And we're seeing all of the people arrive here from the south. I mean, the traffic is, there's a lot of traffic jams, and people have started to arrive.
Yeah, there's loads of people coming in. Loads of people at schools and just, I don't know, displaced people. Don't really know what's going to happen, but a lot of Beirut has emptied out, and like I said, loads of families have gone to the mountains because that's kind of considered safe, but then again, you never know what's going to happen because I know Israel have been bombing further north today and in mountainous areas, so no one knows where's really safe, which is kind of why I'm staying in Beirut, because I don't know, you can kind of work out which areas should be safe. Also, I don't know, in Beirut, I have a community and I know people here, so just leaving to go to the mountains is quite, for me, as a foreigner, not probably something I'm going to do quickly.
Well, stay safe, and hopefully you'll be able to get your flight on Friday. Thank you so much, Chloe, for joining us here on the programme. Well, stay with me, because coming up, we'll assess Israel's military options, and they've put all the options on the table. They're now fighting a war on 3 fronts. So could a ground invasion of Lebanon really be next? Stay with us.
Mandatory evacuation, you must leave.
For many people, Harvey is far from over. Christchurch has been changed forever by what happened here.
There was a river of blood coming out of the mosque. That's a scene that you don't forget.
Ida has certainly left its mark on New Orleans.
It just feels heartbreaking.
We help you understand the world with us. We are standing on the supply line right into the heart of America's opioid crisis. I've reported from around the world and around the UK. Are you trying to run me over, Sir Philip?
No, go away.
Look like it, sir. Will you respond to those who've made accusations, Sir Philip?
Can you go away?
Joe Biden knows the celebrations are over, and this is a country in crisis.
You don't want to be remembered this way. You always want to be remembered as something positive.
It is almost impossible to predict where these fires will go next. This gives you an idea of the strength of those winds, strong enough to bend and twist metal.
Do you regret the tweet, Gary?
There's no sign, publicly at least, of either side being willing to give ground. How do you reassure the public that all of these mistakes wouldn't be made again? I'm Greg Milam, and I'm Sky's Chief North of England correspondent.
Our app gives you the very best of Sky News wherever you are. Breaking news, videos, analysis, up at 6%. Podcasts, watching us live. Joins us live all in one place, and all at just the touch of a screen. The Sky News app. Get the full story first.
I say, bring it on.
With America divided and tensions running high, get ready for an election like no other.
Join our teams as we follow the campaign trail as America decides.
We will win, win, win.
Get closer to the action this US election with full reaction and analysis.
Sky News, the full story first.
There's always more to the news than a headline. We want to discover, to delve a little deeper, to find out what's really going on. Explanation, analysis, the people at the heart of every story. I'm Neil Patterson, and this is the Sky News Daily Podcast. So, by the end, we'll hopefully all understand what's going on in the world just that little better. Available wherever you get your podcasts.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story. A new start to Sunday.
I'm ready. Are you?
Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.
Welcome back. It's been just under a year since the conflict began. Israel's military is now fighting on 3 fronts, in Gaza, the West Bank, and in Lebanon. But can they sustain it? And could a ground invasion in Lebanon be next? Our defence and security analyst, Professor Michael Clark, has been assessing the next stage in the conflict.
The conflict in Gaza always had the capacity to spread to other areas, and it looks to be doing just that. We all wondered whether the Israeli Defense Forces, the IDF, could sustain a potentially 3-front war in Gaza, the West Bank, and against Hezbollah in Lebanon. Well, now it looks as if the IDF is almost provoking a wider war on the assumption that Hamas's 7th of October attack puts Israel's very existence on the line. So perhaps the time has come, thinks the Israeli government, to deal with all of our enemies decisively. Israel has been launching hundreds of airstrikes into Lebanon. Nasser picked up massive upticks in thermal activity. Hezbollah have responded with strikes of their own. They know that if they fire off enough of their hundreds of thousands of rockets at once, they can simply overwhelm Israel's defensive shield. And that includes today, where Hezbollah have sent ballistic missiles targeting Tel Aviv. Now, Sky's data and forensics team have verified these images. The missiles were intercepted, but this is a big and important target. But Hezbollah have so far been holding back in their responses. Their ground force capability is said to be between 20 and 50,000 or more. They are very well armed, much stronger than Hamas, and they've got this massive force of rockets. So why do they hold back? Probably because their most important orders come from Tehran, and also because the Iranians regard Hezbollah's constant rocket threat to Israel as a deterrent against Israel hitting them directly in Iran. But the Israelis certainly aren't holding back now. Their offensives have ramped up weekly since Hezbollah's 27th of July rocket attack, probably a misfire or a targeting mistake, on the Druze school at Major Shams on the Golan Heights. I suspect the IDF is trying to frustrate or forestall the use of Hezbollah's massive rocket stockpile. And Israel is working through extensive air attacks on Hezbollah positions, activating the exploding pages in the pockets and homes of Hezbollah members, particularly targeting Hezbollah people like these, the top branches of Hezbollah's command structure, recently killed in Israeli attacks. Further into the inner workings of the group, many of Hezbollah's top commanders have also been killed. Now, these don't look to me like just targets of opportunity. They seem to have decided to work through their Hezbollah list from the top down, stripping out all of the senior leaders under Hassan Nasrallah. Whatever Hezbollah tries to do next, it'll be struggling to maintain any sort of command coherence. Meanwhile, Israel continues to demand the full implementation of UN Security Council Resolution 1701, adopted in 2006. It's designed to create a demilitarised buffer zone between Hezbollah forces and the Israeli border. As Israel keeps saying to the UN, if you don't implement your own resolution properly, we will do it for you. So what's next? Well, the IDF might be bluffing to frighten Hezbollah back north of the Litani River, or they might mean it. A ground invasion of southern Lebanon, again, officially to police their own buffer zone, but perhaps to take on Hezbollah once and for all, and yet avoid the rocket storm that remains a clear possibility. Either way, it's high risk all round. This offensive really began on the 27th of July in the Golan Heights. It's clearly got a way to run yet, and it's getting more dangerous by the day.
That's Professor Michael Clark there. Well, this is The World with me, Yalda Hakim. Stay with us. We've got lots more coming up after the break. President Zelensky addresses world leaders at the UN, urging them to stand with Ukraine and seek peace. Day of this conflict.
They keep telling us that they want aid. And this is what's left of it.
Why only in America?
People want their country to work.
You want a job in a normal life.
Why are these homes empty?
I want you to be honest with people.
That has happened within minutes.
Sky News, the full story first. Free wherever you get your news.
Welcome back to the programme. Now, of course, we're here in Beirut and we've been reporting on the situation in the Middle East. But let's just change focus now and concentrate on another war. This time, of course, the war in Ukraine. After some military gains for Kiev, Russia is pushing back in the east, in the Donbass region. Ukrainian forces are struggling to hold their territory. Our international correspondent, Alex Rossi, was given exclusive access to a medical team working on the front line and sent us this report.
As night draws across the Eastern Front, medical teams wait nervously. They know it will be a busy night. Chief medic Yaroslav takes the call. He's told there are many casualties. It is a race towards the rendezvous point. We film with a night vision camera. Any unnecessary light could draw enemy fire.
The medical evacuation team has just taken its first call of the evening, and we're hurtling now in the dark towards the front lines. Now, they much prefer working at night at the moment because the fighting has become very intense, and the risk of picking up casualties in the daylight and getting spotted and targeted by a drone is often too great.
A few kilometers from the front line and the team stops. Out of the gloom, the first casualties eventually arrive. All look gaunt and shell-shocked. The grime and terror of this grim trench war is written into their faces.
They destroyed the position. With drones, they completely destroyed it. Thank God we survived. One person died, but I was blown away by the explosion. I was lucky.
Ukraine is facing a shortage of manpower. Those at the front are exhausted.
The shrapnel is sticking out of my leg. My leg is swollen and my other leg hurts too. I probably twisted it.
The team moves to a second evacuation point, much closer to the front line. It is an anxious wait in open fields as shells land around us. Eventually, the casualty arrives. There's much more urgency in this extraction. There are 4 more injured men on their way, and the wounded man is in intense pain. Andrei is suffering from shrapnel wounds. He's clearly in shock. As they go, his condition is carefully monitored.
He's okay, he's stable, he's heavily wounded, but stable.
It has been a long journey from the front line to the medical facility. But Andrei will now get the surgery he needs. For the evacuation team, the nights are intense. There is no end to the casualties. Alex Rossi, Sky News, Eastern Ukraine.
Well, as his forces struggle on the battlefield, President Zelensky was at the UN General Assembly urging world leaders not to give up on peace. Have a listen.
I want peace for my people, real peace and just peace. And I'm asking for your support from all nations of the world. We do not divide the world. I ask the same of you, do not divide the world. Be united nations, and that will bring us peace.
Well, our international affairs editor, Dominic Waghorn, is in New York for us. And Dom, I mean, President Zelensky arrived to New York with his victory plan. And what he's told world leaders is don't approach this with a half-hearted victory plan of your own.
Yeah, and he's urging the West and his allies and the coalition supporting Ukraine to stand united and not be divided, and particular in the wake of the rhetoric we're hearing from Vladimir Putin and the continued nuclear sabre rattling. And we heard more of that today when the Russian leader seemed to change Russia's nuclear doctrine, saying that it would be changed so that Russia would use nuclear weapons potentially against non-nuclear countries if they're being supported by nuclear countries. Let's have a listen to what he had to say today.
We reserve the right to use nuclear weapons in the event of aggression against Russia and Belarus as a member of the Union state. All these issues have been agreed upon with the Belarusian side with the President of Belarus, including if the enemy using conventional weapons creates a critical threat to our sovereignty.
So what the Ukrainians are saying about that is it is just a threat. It's bluster from the Russians, and we have heard other nuclear bluster, obviously, in recent months in response to threats from the West to bolster their support for the Ukrainians. And the Russians are particularly concerned about the possible change in the rules of the long-range weapons that Ukraine's allies have given them. The Ukrainians want to be able to use them to strike Russian targets deeper within Russia, and so far their allies have been reluctant to do that. The message from President Zelensky was there was a warning about the possibility of Russia actually targeting Ukrainian nuclear facilities, so civilian nuclear facilities. The Ukrainians are worried about that. But that victory plan, that sort of peace formula that that you're referring to there, is something he's been discussing with British Prime Minister Keir Starmer and other leaders, and he will go obviously now to Washington to discuss it with American politicians on Capitol Hill and with Joe Biden. And central to that, he's looking for commitments from America in particular on more advanced weapons, doesn't really specify which weapons, and also greater security guarantees. So if there is the possibility, if it ever comes to this and he has to negotiate with Russia's leader, he can do so in a position of superiority. And if the Russians go back on their word, as they have done numerous times with Ukraine in other negotiations, the Ukrainians will be in a better position to defend themselves. So that's what he's looking for, and he's going to say to Joe Biden, this is a deal you could strike before the end of your time in office. It could be part of your legacy after you leave office.
Dominic, thank you so much for bringing us up to date. Now, coming up, the world, but not as you know it. Full details of a special new project. Stay with me to find out.
I'm Katie Spencer and I'm Sky News' arts and entertainment correspondent. When you think of Glastonbury, it's mud you want and music. They're going to cross to us live in a minute. Okay. Thank you so much. Brad Pitt is now a prolific producer behind the scenes.
It's not a mystery to me. We always were capable of doing this.
Oh, they're wonderful children as an audience.
Who did that? Maverick here on the red carpet. I'm so excited, Tom Cruise. This is the story of the night.
It's the little independent film that could.
We take you to the heart of the stories that shape our world.
Nor have I ever struck any woman in my life.
There's this illusion of power.
Are you feeling well?
I remember covering the Oscars and that now infamous moment, the Will Smith slap. Nobody could quite believe that it had happened. You can tell from these crowds just how excited people are for the return of Pride.
These actors playing the lead roles were born long after the Sex Pistols broke up.
Are you pleased that you did say yes to the job?
I've never regretted it.
As a team, we've interviewed some of the biggest stars in the world. It can be incredibly surreal being swept up in their world, but we try to give you an honest sense of how these people really are.
Okay, I'll talk to you.
Don't leave me.
Yeah, okay.
There's no easy goodies. There's no easy baddies.
I've had a great time here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Welcome to the world.
Our new podcast, starting now. It's very exciting. Every week we'll be reporting from the world's trouble spots.
We get to hold those in positions of power accountable, and we get to ask the questions that the audience, the listeners, want to know about.
And that's why it is so important that people tune in, come along for the road, come along for the journey. It'll be fun.
Play Sky News.
From the Sky News Centre at 7.
Now that you're up to date, we can go into a bit more detail.
Things can change incredibly quickly.
Taken by surprise.
Have you ever known a moment like this in British politics before?
Yes. Cheers. We'll start with breaking news.
Let's get the latest on the ground.
So, by the end, we'll hopefully all understand what's going on in the world just that little better.
I say, bring it on.
With America divided and tensions running high, get ready for an election like no other.
Join our teams as we follow the campaign trail as America decides.
We will win, win, win.
Get closer to the action this US election with full reaction and analysis.
Sky News, the full story first.
There's always more to the news than a headline. We want to discover, to delve a little deeper, to find out what's really going on. Explanation, analysis, the people at the heart of every story. I'm Neil Patterson, and this is the Sky News Daily Podcast. So, by the end, we'll hopefully all understand what's going on in the world just that little better. Available wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome back to Beirut. I'm Yalda Hakim. As Israel and Hezbollah trade rockets and missiles, world leaders at the UN General Assembly have been calling for de-escalation. Iran will be central to any decision that Hezbollah makes next. Last night, we heard the president condemning Israel's actions. Well, to discuss this further, let's cross live now to New York and speak to America's acting special envoy for Iran, Abraham Paley. Mr. Paley, thank you very much for joining us here on the program. All week, we've been hearing world leaders calling for de-escalation, but that is not the rhetoric that we have been hearing here on the ground in the region. In fact, one of a senior IDF general just a few hours ago told his troops that, they should get ready for a possible ground invasion. How concerned are you about the situation developing on the ground?
Thanks very much for having me here today. As you've heard from the President and Secretary, we are doing everything we can here in New York with our partners and allies to work to avoid further escalation in the region. There's a lot that all parties need to do on this, and we're also calling on Iran to work to rein in its proxies as we work to present a more positive future for the region and work towards that end.
Do you think, though, that perhaps Hezbollah can decouple itself from the war in Gaza? It doesn't feel like that, and it doesn't appear like they will. And we're seeing the ceasefire in Gaza has stalled. That doesn't look like it's going anywhere either.
So what I'd say, it's not up to me to get in the head of Hezbollah, but what we have been doing is calling for both Hezbollah and Iran to avoid further escalation in the region. For years now, Iran has supported Hezbollah and other proxy and terrorist groups throughout the region and fanned the flames of escalation there. And so, as the United States, when we approach Iran and when we approach our policy in the region, we remain incredibly concerned about the range of different destabilizing activities that Iran is doing. And we are calling on Iran to work to do everything that it can to avoid further escalation in the region right now.
Do you think, though, that the United States could have put more pressure on Israel as well to reach a ceasefire agreement sooner so that we wouldn't, and, we shouldn't be in the position that we are today, where we're seeing the death toll in Lebanon just in the last 3 days has reached 700?
Well, I'm not going to speak to hypotheticals, but what I can say is this. The Secretary, the President, and a range of senior U.S. officials have been working and encouraging all parties to find a way forward in Gaza and find a way forward
but it's not a hypothetical, Mr. Paley, though, is it? I spoke to U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken just a couple of weeks ago, and I asked him about pressure on Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to reach some kind of ceasefire agreement in Gaza. And he said, look, we can try and put pressure, but ultimately it is going to have to come down to the leadership here on the ground. We now have a situation where Hezbollah isn't backing down despite being dismantled, and certainly Israel isn't stepping away from this either.
Look, there are a range of different actors and obviously issues that are overlapping in the region right now. As you mentioned, the secretary is engaged across the entire file. You know, when it comes to the work that I'm doing here in New York and engagement with our partners and allies right now, the message that we're trying to send to Iran is clear. There are steps that Iran and the new administration in Iran can take right now to encourage parties, to encourage Hezbollah, to encourage Hamas, to encourage others to de-escalate, to work towards a ceasefire in Gaza and a hostage deal, and to find ways to avoid further conflict from expanding in the region.
Mr. Paley, I have about 10 seconds left, but do you think Iran is actually listening?
I think Iran is hearing loud and clear the message that not just the United States, but the international community is sending loud and clear. And we remain ready to see action from Iran. We've heard a lot of rhetoric this week from the new administration. And now it's up to them to show that they are going to take steps to address the many concerns that both we and the international community have.
Mr. Paley, thank you very much for joining us here on the program.
Thanks for having me.
Well, the word is out. We've got a new special project, The World, but not as you currently know it. Have a look.
We're rolling.
Welcome to the world.
Our new podcast, starting now. It's very exciting. Every week, we'll be reporting from the world's trouble spots.
We get to hold those in positions of power accountable, and we get to ask the questions that the audience, the listeners, want to know about.
And that's why it is so important that people tune in, come along for the road, come along for the journey. It'll be fun.
And Richard joins me here now. And of course, Richard, you're in
Beirut.
We're both in Beirut. You were just earlier, you know, in the region as well. You've been all over the place, but you and I have been crisscrossing. We've been covering this conflict
for years. And now we're going to do this project together. And the announcement, as you said, just got made. The cat is out of the bag. We're going to do this weekly podcast.
We are. Just tell our viewers, you know, what to expect, because it launches in about 2 weeks' time. There is a mini-sode coming out next week, October 2nd.
Which we have to do. I assume we'll be doing from somewhere in Lebanon or somewhere in the region as things escalate. As we've been saying together, and we will be sharing now with the rest of the world through this Sky podcast, is that it's going to be more of the conversation that we have normally, the kind of conversation, we're friends, we're colleagues, we've been friends for a long time, and the kind of conversations we have in private, around the dinner table, the kind of things we talk about when we're not in strange foreign settings like this. I think people sometimes think that we, you know, always move around and we have camera crews with us and we have some sort of background of a disaster behind us, but that's not always the case. We're normal people, we talk about things, but we talk about world affairs, and I hope people are going to find it interesting and engaging and look at the world a different way and how to sort of engage in it the way we engage with it.
Yeah, I mean, because people are worried about the state of the world. I mean, I know, you and I have spoken about this, the number of people who ask us, you know, what's going on in Ukraine? What's going on in the Middle East?
They're terrified.
Should I be worried? You can feel the anxiety here in Lebanon.
Yeah, there is a sense that the world is falling apart. I hear that so many times. And what a lot of people are doing is they're just tuning out. They're saying, it's so bad, so much bad news. I don't want to hear about it. I'd rather just focus on my own personal affairs. I don't read the news anymore because it's so depressing, frightening, off-putting. And a lot of it is frightening, especially what's going on in the U.S. It seems like the United States is in a state of collapse. The Middle East is on fire. Ukraine just took a piece of Russia, and now Putin is threatening World War III. I can understand why people want to put their heads in the sand. It's not going to help. The world isn't going to go away. It's not going to get any less complicated, less dangerous. You need to engage, but maybe we can help people engage in a different way, having a conversation, inviting in guests, having a calm, thoughtful, lengthy conversation, sometimes serious, sometimes a little bit lighthearted, that will, I hope, allow people to understand their world, participate in the world, and not just be confused or afraid of it.
Yeah, because increasingly I think people realize we live in an interconnected world, and what goes on somewhere like this does affect everyone everywhere. You
no
know,
doubt.
so sort of it's about better understanding your world. And as you say, for us, it'll be about inviting a guest in to talk to us, an expert in whatever issue it might be, and for us to be able to further analyze that.
It'd be like people coming in, joining us. It's a seat at our dinner table, and you get to be part of that conversation and hear what we're talking about, and that gives you power. If you can understand what's going on in the world and have information, I think that better equips you to deal with it, not just to understand it, but to interact with it for your sake, for your family's sake, and hopefully for all of our sakes, because tuning out is not a good solution.
It really isn't. Richard, I'm really excited.
I'm excited, and it's amazing that we're going to do this from a hot story.
Yeah.
This is a developing story. We don't know where it's going to go, but based on what we were just hearing from your last interview, it doesn't sound like diplomacy is really in the cards.
Yeah, no, exactly. And these are the sorts of
Didn't
things
leave me with a lot of confidence.
No, not at all. These are the sorts of things we're going to be talking about on The World, the new podcast that Richard and I will be broadcasting. It'll be going out every Wednesday, launching on October the 9th, but we'll have a mini-sode that will come out on October the 2nd. And then every Wednesday, it'll be dropping. So do tune in to get more thoughtful analysis and discussion. But from all of the team here, good night for now.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story. A new start to Sunday. I'm ready. Are you? Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.
Day of this conflict.
They keep telling us that they want aid. And this is what's left of it.
Why only in America? People want their country to work.
You want a job in a normal life.
Why are these homes empty?
I want you to be honest with people.
That has happened.